This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Hey, this is Editing Seth. On Wednesday, 2 days after we watched the first 2 episodes of The Wheel of Time, myself, Travis, SuperChicken from Discord, and Never, my girlfriend, all drove up to Seattle to see the screening there. So what follows is the conversation we had on the way home. I really wanted to talk to more people in the theater, but they did confiscate all my recording equipment at the door, which really made it difficult to talk to anybody who was there. So that being said, this is full spoilers for the first 2 episodes of the Wheel of Time TV series on Amazon Prime. We spoil everything that happens in those, and we speculate about a bunch more stuff. If you do not want to hear that, do not listen to this episode. This was recorded in a car, so the quality may not be perfect for everybody. I kept the mic mostly close to my mouth, so I sound great, but of course everybody else. I had to filter out some road noise, so forgive me if the sound quality isn't the best. Alright, that's your final warning, and here we go. Spoilers for the first 2 episodes of the Wheel of Time TV show.
Alright, we're on our way back from seeing the first Wheel of Time thing, and we're just talking about it in the car, and yeah, just passing the mic around.
So before we started recording, I was talking about Moiraine super delirious from her Trolloc injury, and it was just crazy interesting how she comes down hard on Lan because he takes them into Shadar Logoth, and she's just like, "You've gotten all of us killed," and then they barely escape with their lives, every single one of them.
Yeah, they completely changed why they were in Shadar Logoth. That was entirely a Lan call without Moiraine saying anything. They didn't have her being just exhausted. They added in the wound to the shoulder. There's fucking a lot going on with that.
I really want to see what happens with Nynaeve and Moiraine, and are we going to get to see that scene? Are we going to get a flashback to that scene that they've teased with Nynaeve killing the Trolloc in the sacred pool? We didn't get to see Egwene doing the ceremony in the pool. Are we going to get a flashback to that moment as well? And at what point? There's so much missing.
Well, I mean, I think that feels to me like it has to be a dream then, because with the 7 colors and everything, they've really gotten into dreams with the bats instead of the rats.
Instead of rats? Yeah. Bats instead of rats was a really interesting take as well.
I thought that was kind of cool just because of, Mountains of Mist. I imagine there are a bunch of bats around there.
Yeah, I guess, geographically, it does make more sense. You're not going to have a bunch of rats running around in the mountains and the forest as much as you are bats flying around. They're not doing that scene was originally in Baerlon, but now they're doing it in the forest. So I guess bats isn't bad.
Yeah, they've taken out a lot of the inn scenes. There's not a lot of stopping at inns. They're all camping in forests, so...
It'll be interesting to see what they do now that the party is split up after episode 2. Matt and Rand are the ones that we get all the tavern scenes with, so I'm sure we're going to get at least one.
I'm waiting for Tom, though, right? Because that's what I remember, is that they're with Tom, and they learn how to all the songs and how to entertain and how to make money. So, I really want to see that.
Well, that's Bean Spring now is where they're going to meet him and hang out with him. So I bet that's next episode with them.
Okay, also, I mentioned this to Seth earlier, but I feel like, in my opinion, that Bran was acting a lot more like how I imagined Matt in the beginning. I feel like Matt is not as combative as I remembered with, authority. At least, I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering.
They really made him the comedic relief, whereas I feel like in the beginning...
I used to be so annoyed by him.
He was the one who was always, anti-Aes Sedai, whereas in this one, I feel like Rand had a little more of that. And Matt was like, well, get the girl a break, she can throw fireballs and all that kind of stuff. Get on her good side.
Yeah.
Well, we were saying we hope we flesh out Perrin's wife a little bit, because that was...
Yeah, I don't hate the change to his character. I feel like it's a good idea in a way to add depth and add pain and torment to Perrin's life and help contribute to his broodiness. But, they didn't do a good job at making Layla a character that was attached. There's nothing to attach to with Layla.
Yeah.
So, Perrin killing her was more shock value than anything else at this point.
Fleshed out.
The thing I remember about her is her earrings, to be perfectly honest.
And she seemed kind of angry, or she was working out some anger in the forge. That was how I was reading her body language.
I also...
I thought she was pregnant, yeah.
was touching her tummy when Perrin came in and wrapped his arms around her.
Oh, shit.
And then when he axed her, it was straight to the gut, and like her hands immediately went to her stomach.
You might be right.
So that means that he would have killed his wife and unborn child.
And literally, like, probably didn't just kill his unborn child by, like, killing his wife. Literally, like, axed his baby.
What I think is interesting is I don't know what I expected, but maybe something more like a hysterical, like, oh god, it's all my fault, you know, like some sort of breakdown in front of somebody, but he has just stayed quiet, which is like very shocking to me.
Which I think in a way
That
makes
seems
sense
like
for
character.
Perrin, because he is very internal and
He
broody.
won't open up until he meets Fail.
Right. And Fail's gonna like come in and break down all of these walls that he's
Yeah.
built up after killing his
That
wife.
seems right.
Yeah, there's going to be that scene of him being like, why are you feel so bad? Your wife was killed by Trollocs. It wasn't your fault.
He's gonna make the guilt
Yeah.
is just eating him
Oh
up.
my gosh. Yeah, you saw it already starting to.
What's going on with his leg?
Trolloc wound. That's a Trolloc wound. He got clawed in the leg by one.
Yeah, he got by the leg.
Yeah,
on
I mean,
with
I don't
one.
think it's like a Thakandar blade kind of thing, though.
No, I think it's normal infection.
Yeah, it did seem infected.
I think they only did that to tie in the wolves. To
Well,
tie them
I
in.
wonder, do the wolves' saliva have some sort of like
I think so.
anti-trollic bacteria healing properties?
It's like
I wonder-
Phoenix Tears, man.
Right. I wonder if they're gonna do like a Phoenix Tears element to wolf
Maybe.
saliva.
They are supposed to be the antithesis of the Trollocs.
They are.
Yeah.
And the Darkhounds.
The Darkhounds.
Well, but yeah, and that was such a weird introduction to the wolves, too.
I was waiting
Yeah.
for fucking Elias to pop out of the woods
I was too.
and get the Elias reveal that they've been hiding from us, and we didn't get it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see Elias.
I don't think so either at this point. I think Elias has been cut.
It wouldn't surprise me. It's
It
an easy
wouldn't-
cut.
It is an easy cut. It wouldn't cripple the story, and it
No.
would make Perrin's transition to the wolves even more
A little
challenging
more
for him.
mysterious, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I think Elias serves an expositional role as much as he does a character,
Yes.
and I think that they're going to probably stay with Robert Jordan's non-expositional style and show rather than...
One thing that I was disappointed, I was really waiting for one of the Trollocs to speak to Ran.
You mean Narg?
Yeah, because that's the only one that's ever spoken, and so I was like really excited to hear whatever terrifying voice it had, but it wasn't. I mean, the fight scene was cool, but it just didn't.
And I think we can assume that Trolloc is Narg.
That was Narg. It was a wolf-faced Trolloc. It
It
did
was.
attack them at their farmhouse. We just
Yeah.
didn't get the verbal interaction.
I
Or
like his wolf
the deceit.
style.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
What do you think about Tam's fighting?
That was badass.
That was pretty dope.
Like, Tam went from frantic and fending him off with a quickly grabbed spear to like
Sword
a
forms.
straight-up blade master
Yeah.
dueling a Trolloc.
Yeah, that was dope.
What was on the case? You got a better look at it than I did.
Heron.
Heron, yeah.
The Heron was on the case,
As well as
the chest that the sword and scabbard
as
were
well as
in.
the blade.
And then the herons were on the blade as well. I didn't get to see if the herons were on the hilt.
I didn't see it there.
I also noticed that they didn't make much of a big deal about the boys taking weapons. I didn't see Perrin take an axe. I didn't see Rand take the sword. I didn't even see Rand. Does Rand have the sword? Okay.
He had his dad's sword. He was carrying it, but we didn't see. I mean, we saw Matt hand over the knife, but that was really the first time you saw Matt with the knife. I mean,
And nothing about the bows being weapons, nothing about slings being weapons.
Land didn't give the whole conversation about like anything is a weapon if you have the will to
Yeah.
make it one. Those slings that you use are weapons.
right.
No, I mean, there's a lot. And no Winter Night fever dream from Tam, so no Rand questioning his parentage.
Yeah, his heritage isn't coming into it yet, which I think is kind of cool because no one else's heritage is coming into it yet either.
Nynaeve's.
Nynaeve.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll it'll just be part of the revealing of the characters as that continues to come out, and it makes sense for it not to be right now.
As they begin to learn more about the prophecies of the dragon and, you know, somebody who was born on the slopes of Dragon
Yeah.
Mount, eventually Nynaeve is going to do that hesitant. Of course you were all born here, but take too long to answer that question when Rand questions her about it.
Maybe they'll have that scene.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to get it at some point.
She does remember.
She does.
And it's cool that she's already been disqualified within the story because she's 5 years too old.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. It's like they're already narrowing it down and keeping you like engaged with that whole puzzle.
They're showing that Egwene can channel, right? And and they haven't. I was expecting for Rand to channel and make Bella go faster when the Trollocs were chasing them.
Expecting that, but when it didn't happen, I was like, "That's cool. They're playing up Egwene. I like that."
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
then
I love it.
they're gonna fast track it in the last episode or two to Rand.
I don't know. I thought the last horse on the line didn't. All the other horses were sitting down, and Moiraine was giving them and then the last one didn't need it, and I think that was Bella.
Let's see if that happened. That would be
one
cool.
That was already up, yeah. But they didn't make a big deal about it. It would have been nice if she said something to Lan about one of these horses didn't need my healing.
If it's an Easter egg like that you just get by paying attention to, you know what? I'm on board.
Yeah,
I'm on board because they're going to have to be really surreptitious about including all of these details if it's going to be not in your face, not expositional, and they're cutting lots of stuff. But if they leave some stuff in that way, that's cool by me. I'm in love with Moiraine's cloak. I want those shoulders.
yeah.
Seriously,
I would wear that cloak.
I would wear that
non-ironically.
cloak. Yeah, right. I would wear that cloak and I'd be like, I am fucking badass.
I would absolutely walk to the grocery store in that cloak.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that is by far the coolest costume so far in the series. Padan Fane's jacket was cool.
I would also wear Padan Fane's jacket.
Yes. It's like it's kind of like my vest with tails, but it's cut in that sort of brocade, I don't know. It looks like brocaded cotton, so I don't know what the hell it actually is.
Yeah, I think it's wool.
Maybe it's wool.
I mean, we kind of assume everything in the Two Rivers is wool.
So, Padan Fane's a merchant that travels everywhere.
He has access to the cool stuff.
He's more of a peddler than a merchant. So, he's not broke, but he's not silk rich either.
Yeah, it wasn't
was
ostentatious.
It was a very
just
fine wool.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it seems within his station.
The costuming in general is pretty fucking fantastic.
It's good.
The Trollocs as well. The variety, and also they didn't just have the Trollocs on screen for one or two scenes.
They freaking made me pee myself.
Yeah,
that was horrible. I mean, it was horrific. I was sitting there crying because it was so overwhelmingly horrific, and it just kept going on, which I thought was a great opportunity for us to experience what Winter Night was like, since we didn't really get that in the books so much.
We really got to see the brutality of the Trollocs and the horrifying nature of their twisted forms, and
it confused villagers who didn't know what to do and were just getting shredded.
The pure chaos of that entire moment. It was beautifully done.
Yep.
I can see why Wraith has been talking about, I can't wait for you guys to experience Winter Night, because it was a powerful experience.
Yeah.
That first time she channeled, when the Trolloc was about to take down Nynaeve and Elaine, and she tore it apart.
Ripped it in half.
Yeah, that was incredible. You were in front, the Trolloc was running towards you in terms of the camera perspective, and then she tore it from behind, and you saw the front half just continue going, kind of over your left shoulder, Oh,
and
man.
It was gory.
Yes.
There was blood and guts ripping out of the shredded, abdominal portion of the Trolloc. It was not glossed over at all.
It was quick, but not glossed over.
Yeah, it was quick and brutal.
Yeah, and a lot of the shots were quick. We didn't really linger on anything, but when I go back and think about it, there was beheadings, it was just a lot of gore.
So, Moiraine destroys the inn.
Yeah, Moiraine destroyed Winespring Inn to take out the Trolloc horde.
Nynaeve is kidnapped or dragged off.
Oh, that's Bran's inn. We met Bran.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, are they squishing that, the destruction of that inn, which actually wasn't Moiraine in the first place.
Gotcha.
I don't think that is. I'm just...
Are you talking about the inn in Baerlon that the Fade burns down?
That's Min's Inn.
That's Min's inn.
Oh, yeah, Min's inn. Uh-huh.
But also, what kind of bothered me was, how quickly they leave the Two Rivers with, very little build-up to that. They could have had all of the villagers wrap around her and, give her shit for destroying their, center of commerce.
I expected that. Once she tore down the Winespring Inn, I expected a little bit of, reaction from the crowd.
Yeah, I thought that they were going to be confronted and she was going to have to grow big and walk over the gate or something.
Yeah.
That may still be coming. I don't know.
Yeah, and that was the one thing I wish, I guess, just I took away from the first episode, is the first episode was a lot of quick cuts. I would have loved to see a 2-hour first episode that lingered a little bit on some of those scenes. And
that is Yuta Brycewitz's style of direction, though, is those, like, quick, concise scenes like that kind of jump around from character to character. She did that a lot in Westworld, and it made it hard for me to get into Westworld.
It's keeping my emotions engaged because, like, every scene is really impactful, but it does make it hard for me to emotionally remain present because I'm just being jolted from all angles by different scenes and different emotions that are hard to stay, like, I feel in context with because they're happening so quickly.
how was the music for the emotional journey?
There were definitely moments where that music was tugging on my heartstrings.
Yeah.
Like, Lauren did a great job with the music, and I love that it's got the, like, it's got the flavor of fantasy with, like, the sweeping notes and the crescendos and the drums that kind of lead it. It's got that kind of flavor of fantasy music, but it's got this modern spin on it. There's, like, electric guitar and synth and some other unrecognizable instruments, and, like, it doesn't sound like your traditional orchestra, but it has orchestral flavors.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think we talked about this briefly, the Manetheren song.
Dude, okay, when Matt started singing, I was like, there's no way that everybody else is going to get involved in this. And then everybody, even Perrin did, and Perrin's vocals, as he, like, led all of those hooks into the next bit, like, his deep, like, baritone vocals that led into this next very musical piece was, like, powerful. Like, that song brought me to tears immediately.
Same. That was like that was probably the worst cry for me. Like, that song evoked the emotion of the speech of Manetheren. And then she gave the speech of Manetheren. That was honestly, like, the most directly from the book part was Moiraine's Manetheren speech.
And Rosamund Pike's delivery of some of those lines in that speech were just so expert.
Fantastic actress.
She is.
She's leading this like a pro, and I'm so grateful for her doing that.
Also, just another one here, the interaction between her and Nynaeve in the cave was so good. I got to read an article earlier this weekend about Zoe Robbins talking about filming that scene. Zoe Robbins being an actress with some titles under her belt, but nothing so big as anything like this, and never having worked with a star of Rosamund's caliber, and then having to have an argument, a duet scene between her and Rosamund fucking Pike, where they're confronting each other, and how nerve-wracking that was for Zoe Robbins as an actress. It was a powerful article, and it was amazing to watch that scene on the screen.
I honestly think Zoe is the one actress that's blowing me away more than anyone else, because, you know, seeing her before in Power Rangers, and I watched it, and I mean, she carried the show, but it was such a narrow slice of acting ability.
Power Rangers is, like, known for its super campy, poor acting, poor writing, just like choreographed kids show.
Yeah, it's designed to be that way. So, you know, it was like, I didn't want to judge her off of that in the slightest, because it's not what she's doing here. And seeing her in the first episode, like, yeah, that's not what she's doing here. She's doing something completely different. She's embodying and doing a fantastic job of Nynaeve.
Yeah, I think that Rosamund Pike's portrayal of Moiraine and Zoe Robbins' portrayal of Nynaeve are probably the best portrayals as far as capturing the spirit of the characters so far.
I think Daniel Henney does a great Lan, in that he does just fade into this, like, he is there to make Moraine's job work and to make her go. And it's like, he does that both in a story capacity, but also it feels like he's doing it in an acting capacity as well.
His own. I don't think he's like carrying anything, but
No, but Lan shouldn't be.
No, well, I mean,
Lan doesn't really become an influential character until later in the series.
He's
like,
just, I expect him to have a bit more presence while being quiet in that presence. But I'm not trying to criticize Daniel's job. He's doing great. There's a little dissonance between how I feel Lan should feel on screen and how he's being portrayed, and that's a very minimal quibble.
I really like what we're getting from Lan so far. I just feel like the Lan that we know and love, that intimidating badass Lan that's also got these like hidden layers like an onion, like we get to see more of that later, especially when he prepares Rand to talk to the Amerlin Siege.
Oh my god.
That's when we really get to see that Lan is more than Moraine's errand boy.
There was some I would like to see is more teaching the boys how to use the weapons. That would have been nice to see him be like, again, we skipped the whole weapons thing. Perrin having an axe, Matt having his bow and staff.
Some of that on the journey to the Blight.
Yeah.
Lan will prepare them to travel the Blight by teaching them some things while they're leaving Faldara, while they're leaving the tower to Faldara. Maybe there will be some weapons exposition there.
We saw some stuff after as well. There was a making of, which I thought was pretty interesting. It was mostly about the Trollocs.
Behind the scenes was mostly about the Trollocs and Winter Night and stuff like that.
And then we got the first of the animated shorts, which was the death of Manetheren, which was actually very short.
Yeah, it was a couple of minutes. And it was just like an animated retelling of the story we all know by heart. But it was a beautiful animation style. That animation style was compelling.
Yeah.
I would watch an entire series done in that animation style and not be sad about it.
So cool that they included that. I was giddy about getting to see it. How Emond was rendered.
Yes.
Man, the way that his shoulders were eagle feathers,
looked like eagle feathers.
And then his torso looked like scales, like talon scales or something.
Yeah.
That was beautifully rendered.
Like the feathered chest of a bird, almost.
Yeah.
The animation, the Myrddraal with that headpiece that Myrddraal was wearing was so cool. It was kind of cool too because it was right before we saw that, we saw Emond in his crown, and then we see this Myrddraal in this helmet headpiece that's the antithesis of Aemon's crown. It had a similar but opposite structure.
One of the other big changes that I saw was the change to mostly the parents' backstory, right? Matt's parents are, Abel Cawthon is not the same Abel Cawthon, that's for damn sure. He's a drunk, abusive womanizer, yeah. Which I suppose is everything that Matt kind of becomes, but it's interesting that they're portraying it in such a negative light when we sort of celebrate Matt for being that way. But of course, he's not married.
Matt does do it differently than the way that his dad is portraying it.
Matt's mom is not okay with it. She's freaking out and crying, and it's obviously not something that they've worked out between them. He's just off, ignoring her and paying attention to some other woman.
Well, and she seems to be a pretty much chronic drunk as well.
Their marriage is definitely failing, and she's hiding in the bottle, and he's hiding in other women.
Yep.
And then no Luhans.
Luhans. Wield the cast iron, do you think?
Well, we did see Days Conger kicking ass, but she didn't have the pan, which I was kind of disappointed about.
Pitchforks were cool, though.
That was cool.
I will say, those traditional, old school pitchforks were pretty fucking dope.
The peasant uprising was.
Yeah.
I cheered for that.
Yes,
that was awesome. But yeah, before the series is over, we will see cast iron wielded in some way. I'm sure they're probably just building up to it. Clearly, that's an important moment. They wouldn't dare cut that.
Somebody's gonna get walloped with a cast iron skillet,
yes.
Or at least threatened. Okay, can we talk about the Trollocs? Can we please talk about the Trollocs that were running around on all fours that had more animalistic bodies than human bodies? That wasn't something that I was expecting. Because all of the Trollocs are described as very humanistic bodies with animal features, rather than very animalistic bodies with human features. They completely inverted that for some of the Trollocs, and they were some of the scariest ones.
Totally agreed. Yeah, the ones that were especially on the forest floor, right before they got to Shadow Logith, that scene where they could just see them running as a sort of a group, that was really terrifying, because you could see the mobilization of the articulation of the Trollocs. And some of that had to have been CGI'd with the movement, because there's no way that's...
For the Trollocs, they intentionally made it as real as possible. So they had people in suits that they had really embellished But then on top of that, they added the CGI, and they tried to do it in such a way where the viewer would have a hard time being able to tell what was real and what was CGI, because they found in their testing of it that made it the most terrifying.
That's because of the uncanny valley.
Uncanny valley on the distance shots of Shadar Logoth than there was on the Trollocs. There was only one moment with the Trollocs that really stood out to me as being a little rough cut, and that was the head toss that Narg does as he barrels through the farmhouse.
Yeah.
Right in the very beginning, and it's just the briefest second where it feels a little bit CGI.
It happened too fast. It didn't see enough of the details. Something was a little off.
Yeah.
Not sure what.
Now, I had to run to the bathroom in between episodes, so I missed the first 5 minutes of episode 2, which is the pre-credits scene, which apparently was the White Cloak and Yellow Sister being burned. But you described in pretty gory detail.
I almost don't want to talk about it again because I want people to experience that. That scene with the Aes Sedai, Emond Valda had her tied at the stake and had, legitimately sliced off her hand, picked up her hand off the stump that he had cut it off on, casually, like it was no big deal, and pulled the ring off of the finger while talking to her about how one of the most, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but how, an Aes Sedai should know better than anyone that sometimes the best way to show mercy is through brutality, as he's burning her at the stake and pocketing her.
He also chopped off both her hands. Yeah, 2 hands were there.
He just picked up the one with the ring on it?
I don't know if they're trying to connect it to, the channeling thing, because in Moraine's channeling, it's very much handsy. Yeah, so maybe they're trying to do something like that.
Interesting.
That's a fun
idea.
Yeah, and we do say that, Aes Sedai, if they can't wave their hands around, they can't really do the weave. It's part of the weave.
Learn how to
They
do it
learned
with
that
those
way.
movements. They need those movements.
Yeah, and she was definitely doing a lot of Tai Chi.
Yeah.
She was weaving weaves. Man, that DNA tower that
double
went up to the
helix.
clouds,
Yeah.
the double heat that wound up manifesting lightning, that was awesome.
And very artfully directed lightning
Yes.
that bounced from Trolloc to Trolloc as it took out 4 of them.
Man.
Yeah, I was speculating that's how she took out the inn, but nope. She literally just pulled the inn apart brick by brick.
Apart, stone
Yeah.
by stone, brick by brick.
When it fell behind her as she
as
fell,
she collapsed,
that was really cool, pathetic fallacy.
that was very tasteful.
Yep. Because she was just spent, and that was just such a cool, dramatic way to show it, tie it into what was happening on screen.
I was disappointed that we didn't get to see her using the Angreal. So they open the episode and make a point of her pocketing the Angreal and taking it with her, and then we don't get to see her use it in the fight, and we don't get to see her use it after the fight when she's wounded, exhausted, has been around healing, and is now being rushed over to heal Tam.
I think they're waiting to to reveal that to the uninitiated as an aspect of what's happening, and it's those who know, if you know, you know, and
Right.
we know, and there are people for whom that was just a statue being wrapped in cloth, and they don't understand what it was. So it's kind of like that experience of, reading the Wheel of Time, where there's something significant and you don't know what it is when you first see it, on a first read, and then you learn about it later. You're like, oh, that's what that was. I think that's gonna
That aha moment that's gonna come later.
Yeah, I think that they're gonna build some stuff like that and have that flavor of Robert Jordan's writing in some cinematographic style, and I like it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I could be cool with that.
It does look like they're going to do a quote-unquote prologue scene for every chapter where we see, because we saw Leandrin take down one of the false dragons, or at least Channeler. Sorry, just Channeler. Yeah, I don't think it was a dragon either. Although Moiraine did say he's not the one, she was overlooking that. So that was sort of, I guess they cut it into the main plot line by having Moiraine watching it. But it did seem to be a short, and I bet they're going to open every episode with this is what some other characters are doing elsewhere.
Yeah, they did talk about that a bit. Someone did.
I think
when he was I think when Rafe did the narration or kind of reaction to, or whatever you call it, behind the scenes trailer, he talked about that.
I was just gonna say that I liked how also they established right off the bat that men who channel will go crazy. Like, by having it be that he was running with someone who wasn't there. Right off the bat, I was like, oh wow, okay.
Which tells me that's exactly how they're going to show us LTT. As a guy who Rand sees is there and talks to.
Will be. That's a good point.
Oh, that is a good point. Like, more than just a disembodied voice in his head, but like a full-on, he becomes like a full-on manifestation of his madness that only he can see and talk to.
Yeah. I like that way of doing LTT. Having him be there on screen,
Like,
talking.
in the back of the room, just like ranting and raving about Hyliana or something.
Yeah, literally like sitting next to Rand on his throne, and Rand's like, just shut up! And you can have him turn to him and talk to him. And
Getting that same scene from somebody else's point of view and there being no one there.
Yeah. Having him be really uncomfortable, behaving really uncomfortably so that the viewer is feeling uncomfortable while everybody else ignores this thing that's really the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if he does a good job, he'll get you in that point of view where you're like, oh yeah, of course he's talking to LTT, he's right there. And then he'll show you that actually it's really fucking crazy.
That is fuck.
Okay, so do you think that the little boy picked up the crown of Manetheren out of the Ethandrel or whatever river that is? Do you think that is a character that will pop up later? Like,
Doubtful, but
was
I
that
wonder.
Aram or something?
I doubt it. I wonder if like that crown is discovered, years later, and like becomes the crown of another kingdom. Because you got to remember that Manetheren covered like parts of Gildan, parts of Andor, parts of, I think, on the other side of the Mountains of Mist as well, the Carlane Grass maybe. Like, I wonder if like that crown is like the crown of Gildan. I wonder if that crown gets like, if we get to see the King of Gildan wearing that crown at some point.
Or what if that crown becomes the crown that Perrin wears when he becomes
That
the
could be cool.
Regent of Two Rivers or
Yeah.
whatever it's called?
That could be, no, that could be really neat. Like, it's just like an artifact that somebody has forgotten in their attic that they're going to discover in the rubble of the village when they go to rebuild or something.
Because
And-
he's the one who was carrying the flag of Manetheren, and Fael was like, no, you should do this, and he kept throwing it away.
Yeah.
So it would be really cool if he finally takes it on to the degree that when he becomes the steward of Grand Poobah Wolf of Two Rivers, that he puts on the crown of Manetheren. That would be a really cool moment.
I think you're right. I think Steward is the title that he's given. Steward of the Two Rivers for the Dragon Reborn.
I think it's Steward. Steward with the crown.
And or accept the queen.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, if the crown is just like a forgotten relic and we never see it again, I'm still just going to be super grateful that we got those animated scenes with it, because those were so good.
Yeah. Getting some rendering of the before times.
I think giving those shorts at the ends of some of these episodes is going to be a really good way for the writers of the show to expound upon some of the history of the world that's touched on in the story, like in the main episodes, but like can't be gotten into in as much detail without like feeling like exposition, to give us that exposition completely out of context and thus not take away from the context.
All right, so I'm curious about things that we've seen in the trailers that weren't in those two episodes. For example, Egwene coming out of the pool with the colors on her face. She's out of the Two Rivers, so that either has to be, I don't think she's going back, it's either a flashback or a dream.
It's either, because
be
it's
in the
definitely in that cave and in that pool. I think that it's going to be either a flashback, because if you noticed, while she was sitting on that cliffside before she got tossed, getting her hair braided, her dress had stains on it.
When she fell upon shore, I thought her dress looked like a rainbow.
It looked like it had yellow, but that's all I saw.
There was
saw
some
a
yellow.
rainbow.
I thought I saw some too.
Huh.
So I wonder that ceremony happened before the cliff toss, or I'm not willing to completely write off the possibility that it could be a prophetic dream of some sort.
That was where I went when I saw it immediately. Is like, how else do you get the 7 colors of the Ajahs in there?
It seemed dreamlike. But then when I saw the yellow on her dress, I definitely didn't think that it was from that. I was trying to not pay attention to it because I'm like, they wouldn't have her pee herself. But I like that there could be a different reason for that to be there. I just don't know why there were no other colors that I could see.
It did look really washed out. So like, there's a good chance that like she came up and had those colors on her, and they like ran off, and then she like, you know, jumped back in or like rinsed off in the pool, or who knows? I don't know. It's gonna be hard to say because of the fact that we didn't get to see it in that episode with the whole women's circle initiation scene. I'm leaning much more towards it being a dream sequence than I was before. I was not convinced that that's what it was, but I'm much more convinced that could be what it is now. I can't wait to see the third episode. I can't wait. Like, Friday cannot get here soon enough.
And then we're going to have to wait a whole week for another fourth one.
Yeah.
But at least we can, in the meantime, between the two episodes, we can watch the 3 over and over again. That's the hardest part of the next 5 days for me, or 4 days, is like, we're not going to be able to just put these things on freaking repeat.
There was like, anybody who attended this got like a little thing that they could log into to rewatch those 2 episodes.
Oh, yeah. You know that's going to spread.
Yeah, that would spread, and then we would show it to other people. And
yeah, that would not. I can see why they would control that.
I'd have trouble not sharing it if I had access to those episodes. I'd be like, oh, yeah, here you go, guys. I'm trying to think if there's any other scenes that I was waiting for that weren't in those first 2 episodes. I guess the Way Gate.
The scene with, what was in the episode, though, but the scene with Rand and Egwene that felt very post-coital in the trailers, which turns out to probably have been actually post-coital.
Right.
There was a lot of speculation about, was that in the Wine Spring or was that in Faldara, and now we know.
Yeah, now we know. Unless it's a flashback.
Doubtful.
I don't think it is, but...
No, I mean, we got to see that scene, and it was after they, like, made out hot and heavy, and he, like, pushed her up against the shelf on the wall.
Yeah, but then it did kind of fade away after that, so there could have been more after that. I don't think there was.
Oh, they definitely had sex.
I'm not saying that they didn't.
I definitely think they boned.
Yeah, I do too. But what I'm saying is that the post-coital scene could have been from that time, but that they just didn't show it during that episode. And he's thinking back to, like, missing her, or how they're not together now, and I don't think that's how it's going to be. But
no, I don't think that we'll ever get back to that scene. I think that scene is on and past. I will say that the amount of passion between Rand and Egwene when they shared that kiss was shocking. Like, there was way more passion and chemistry in that kiss than I was anticipating.
Have you seen them?
I'm really glad that they are demonstrating some chemistry and that there's some energy in their relationship, because I feel like there should be. And I feel like that will give more power to the tension between their relationship as they grow in their power in the ways that those stations are socially opposed.
Yeah, it gives them more sort of when they come back together as Amyrlin and Dragon Reborn and have to conflict on that level, as opposed to them just being like, well, I guess we thought we were going to get married, but nothing ever happened.
Just these 2 episodes that we've seen this, like, elliptical orbit with the 2 of them, where they, like, intersect and then bounce away from each other, and then come back and then bounce away from each other, and it's just this, like, super interesting dichotomy that I think is laying the groundwork for their relationship in the future as Rand rises into his position and Egwene rises into hers.
The tension feels appropriate.
It does. It feels very foreshadowy, which is also cool. Never say something.
Yeah, when he said, what did he say? I could never hate you, Egwene? I was like, oh no, he's going to have to eat those words.
I felt like he was, like, kind of overreacting to her saying she wanted to focus on herself. He had a whole, like, but you can't stay at home and have babies. This sucks. And I was like, Rand, be supportive.
I mean, in fairness, she was saying, I can't be with you and I can't have your babies. Ever. It was like, yeah.
The future that they had made together.
It was. And she wasn't talking about it. And, he was at least letting her know that these are things that I wanted, even though he was doing it in a mopey, pouty, blamey way.
Yeah, it was a little petulant, which was... I mean, they are, like, 20-somethings. They are early 20s. They're exactly 20 years old or whatever, which, like, I will tell you, I was definitely a much more, like, petulant argue with my significant other at 20 than I would be now.
That is shocking.
And also the whole, like, wait, you told me you can't be with me because you're going to be the Wisdom's apprentice, but that's changed now. And she had to point that out to him. But yet they're still not, like, together again, because they like, broke up already. So they're like, oh, well, we broke up, so we're not getting back together, even though our circumstances have completely changed.
It's mostly Rand who's holding that line. She didn't seem like she was pushing for it, but she was like, well, but I'm open to it, or like, where are you at? And he's like, no, but you already decided. You're a cold-hearted bitch, and I never want to kiss you again.
But then you can see that he kind of backpedals on that a little bit in Shadar Logoth.
Yeah.
Like, he takes that moment to himself, and then she comes up and joins him, and he reaches out and grabs her hand.
Yeah.
And she looks up at him kind of, like, shocked, and, like, it's definitely an unspoken moment of, okay, maybe things are going to be okay between us.
That moment felt a lot like the moment in Harry Potter where Harry and Hermione are standing like on a bridge or in a building.
The Shriek Shack?
Yeah, it felt like that moment. It's like everything just seems like it's falling apart. Everything is dark. But
we have each other.
Yeah, they're sharing this moment together, and it's not romantic. It's just strong. It's just potent
and intimate.
Yeah, and intimate. Yes.
How terrifying was Shadar Logoth and the blackness that was.
Okay, is Mashadar, like that scene with the horse? Like, we get that in the trailer, but we just get a glimpse of it. Watching that whole scene unfold was straight up horrifying.
I love that it's not a mist. Love that it's just like a dark, creeping, corrupting shadow. That's beautiful. You know what else is beautiful? The architecture is beautiful.
Those like spiraled columns, windows, and
the statues, the creepy statues.
Yeah, the like Victorian angel statues.
Everything is like stone, concrete.
I was just gonna say that the horse traumatized me. I didn't sign up for horse deaths. That was a lot.
That's hard.
Animal deaths are a quick way to get people to like loathe something, and they definitely did that well.
And them staying in the abandoned Gothic chapel. That was such an amazing, and it's like it seemed like it kind of was a haven, you know, without it being
like
religious.
Yeah. It felt like a church. It felt like it should have been like hallowed ground, or like the one little like safe chamber. Like even the door that led into it, these huge cathedral style doors. It was
and
cool.
The vaulted ceilings and windows, the stained glass window, very much like Notre Dame.
You know what line did feel a little off to me though was the "You've killed us all."
I really liked it because it showed just how exhausted Moiraine was.
Stressed.
And
she was almost right. They all died.
Yeah.
It didn't feel out of place because you could tell that, like, Lan was leading the run away from he was scouting that and kind of, like, directing that. And Moiraine was trusting him as, like, you know, she's a trained academic, but he's a warrior and an outdoorsman and a soldier. She was letting him do that. And she was like, you're bringing us awful close to Shadar Logoth. Is that intentional? And then she's out cold from exhaustion and infection, and lo and behold, he takes them into Shadar Logoth. And then she's like, you fucking idiot. You're lucky I can't channel to drub you over the head.
There also wasn't a lot of like, do we or do we not tell her about the dreams, right? They woke up and she was like, yeah, dreams happened.
I wonder.
Say, tell me again.
Yeah, she did say, tell me if it happens again, and I think that we'll get more reluctance next time.
That's what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting an Ozzy Osbourne moment.
No, yeah, the bat out of his mouth was...
Yeah, it was like, okay, when did he become... No, not Rand. Was that Rand? Oh, yeah, when did Rand become Ozzy Osbourne? Yeah, it was Rand, that's right. I remember him just, like...
joking, and then, like...
fisting his mouth.
That was awful.
Going for it.
Pulled this bat out of his throat.
Yeah, wow.
Well, I think it would have been fine if it had been a dream, but when they woke up and all the bats were still around, that was messed up.
But that was so in character with the book,
yeah,
though, because
the rats.
When Beelzemon does that to the rats, all of the rats are still there. Like, the innkeeper comments about how every rat, they keep finding all these dead rats all over the place, and every single one of them has its back broken.
Well, and what did you see? We got a glimpse of Beelzemon.
Yeah, thinking about that. Yeah, it was just the tiniest of glimpses. It was creepy.
It was so...
it just kind of like grew and then loomed and then it was gone.
It was a very shadowy wraith with fiery eyes.
Which, if you watch the 360 YouTube video of the preview, he does pop out on the right side, and that of the darkness, and that's almost exactly what he looked like in the trailer, just darker in the show.
They're not as present as they were in that 360 view, but still, it was a cool scene. I was super stoked to see that. And Rafe had commented about how, like, well, somebody asked, are we getting the Forsaken in the first season? And he said, if you know anything about the Forsaken, like he basically said, it depends on how much you know about the Forsaken.
That would mean the dreams then, right? Or
Well, because we know, once you get into like book 3 or 4, you realize that Baalzamon in the dreams isn't the Dark One, even though he's coming across as the Dark One. And Rand believes intimately that he's the Dark One, and when he kills Baalzamon, he thinks he's killed the Dark One. And then later in the series, we learn that that was actually a Shamael in the grips of his own madness.
I mean, in fairness, there's a scene pretty early on where Varen tells Egwene that Baalzamon had another name behind a name, a Shamael. She told that poem. And I feel like from that point on, I knew that they were the same person. Even my young teenage self caught that one.
Same, I did, but the characters did not.
you never know.
But yeah, I think that's a funny quote. Like, if you know anything about like the Forsaken, you'll see one. It's like, yeah, if I'm asking this question, I know who the Forsaken are. I know at least enough to know that Baalzamon has the burning eyes, right? Like,
because he couldn't spoil, so he couldn't say yes, the Forsaken are going to be in there, because I don't think that they're going to portray Baalzamon in the show as anything other than Baalzamon. They're going to lead new viewers to think that that is a manifestation of the Dark One.
oh, so like us thinking it's the Dark One, and that way not saying it's a Forsaken. Yeah.
His answer to that question wasn't, yeah, sure, he didn't say yes. He never answered, yes, you're going to have the Forsaken in any capacity. He said, the answer to that question depends on how much you know about the Forsaken. So anybody who has read the series is going to recognize that that was Baalzamon, which is the Shamael. But new viewers are going to see that, and they're going to be like, holy shit, that's the Dark One.
Or they're just not going to know what it is at all.
Not from that first scene.
Not assign it to anything and just be like, I don't know what that was, but that was creepy.
Yeah, the creepy dream was successful. Like, he definitely pulled off creepy dream. Although he gave very Aes Sedai answers. And I like the way we saw Moiraine give that lesson with the White Cloaks, where she answered a whole slew of questions with the Aes Sedai thing, and then schooled Egwene on exactly what those answers were and why they were technically true. And then she said the Aes Sedai answers you give are not the Aes Sedai answers you think. I also, what was it, Marin Alvear gave a Tom line where Tom said, fools kill other fools for foolish reasons.
Just fools killing other fools for things.
And that was a Marin Alvear quote from this one.
That moment where she explained to Egwene about how she was spinning truth in order to adhere to the 3 O's helps you to feel a little trust with Moiraine, even though she's
Telling you exactly how she's deceitful.
even though she's foreboding, even though she's being deceitful and explaining to you how she was, she's being fairly transparent, and she's also like the way that she guides Egwene, the way that she like sits down and is really calm
Towards her, yeah.
and just starts talking to her, and then Egwene eventually just sits down next to her and feels compelled to like keep listening.
I expected Rand to sneak out and overhear that conversation.
I did too.
Yeah.
I was sad that didn't happen.
Yeah, I wonder how they're gonna.
He did see her walk away with her, but he didn't follow to listen to the conversation. But he does know that they slipped out and had a conversation together.
Yeah.
He saw Moiraine wake her, and he saw Egwene get up and leave with her.
I'll be interested to see how the characters come into their power, and then how they hold their secrets from one another, and then how they eventually learn about each other's secrets.
I will say that I think that, other than Winter Night, I think the writing of episode 2 was better than the writing of episode 1.
I agree. Episode 1 felt a little rushed. Rushed is the right word. Like, they had too much to fit in. They couldn't linger where they wanted to linger. And because of that, and they did a lot of, like, showing and not telling, there actually wasn't a lot of dialogue in the first episode. It was a lot, which, I mean, kudos to them.
It was more, like, implicative rather than imperative. Like, we got a lot of dialogue that was, like, a lot of the dialogue in episode 1 almost felt like you have to be a fan of the series to kind of understand some of the things and some of the layers in it.
That's what I'm worried about, is that like other people are going to see these scenes that we read so much significance into and just not understand what's going on and be like, this show is slow sometimes.
The thing about that is, okay, so Rafe wrote the first episode, but so far as I can tell, that's the only episode that he was the writer for. And like I trust Rafe as the showrunner, but after watching that first episode, I don't love him as a writer as much as I think that he is a good wrangler of other writers and people who are better in their fields. I think that he's good as the showrunner, but not as the writer.
I can see that. I also think that maybe the goals in the first episode are just so myriad that even pulling off something decent is like an impressive feat. There's so many goals in that first episode, so many things to introduce, so much exposition, so many characters to introduce and then kill off. Yeah, he's doing a lot in that first book that stretches over a lot in that first episode that stretches over a lot of the first book.
Excuse me, a lot of cornerstones were put down in episode 1, for sure. Like, there are definitely a lot of, like, foundations laid in episode 1. I think that, like, our time spent in the Two Rivers could have covered 2 episodes to really give viewers the attachment to the Two Rivers that the characters have.
Yeah, my only issue with that is, like, that often is what drives people away from book 1, is they cannot get through the extended time in the Two Rivers because, yes, its significance has a lot of significance on rereads, but in the beginning it's just like, okay, Sleepy Village life, let's get to the excitement.
Well, especially contrasted with the prologue, which is like mayhem, confusion, super powerful, crazy stuff happening, and then all of a sudden it's like Sleepy Village, some farmers walking on a road, do.
Yeah.
Also interesting that, I was going to say, Rafe said that was the first scene he wrote, was the two of them on the road. I was going to say, we didn't really see that, but it was more, like, we didn't see him see the...
They were on the road, but that scene was just cut short.
We did get to see them have, like, some weird suspicious interaction in the woods where, like, something spooked Rand and he drew his bow.
There was a rock that fell.
Yeah.
And Tam said that it was from the wolves. There's been a lot more wolves, and when they're running around, they knock the rocks down.
Yeah, he said something's been driving the wolves out of the higher mountains.
Right, something's been driving the wolves out, which is, most likely the Trollocs. That's kind of how it feels in the book. It's like, something's been disturbing the wolves and the creatures outside.
Interesting question, like, how did they get them there so fast? We assume that's going through, like, the Manetheren Waygate?
Manetheren Waygate,
yeah. I don't think they're going to stray from that.
It's like, how else do you get Trollocs all the way down to the Two Rivers quickly?
Learning every nation between, which is a plot point in the books, and we learn later that they're using the Waygates to move the Trollocs, and I think that we'll get a similar experience. I wonder if we will see the remains of the Trollocs that get stuck in the traps, like we do in book 1, where Moiraine then realizes that holy shit, the Waygate at Manetheren. That's how they got there.
Man, Black Wind is going to be fucking terrifying. I do not want to encounter the Black Wind in this series.
With the way that they have played up some of the horror stuff already,
it's going to be bad.
It's going to be terrifying.
Well, and to me, when people ask Rafe, what are you excited to show people about Season 1, he says the ways.
Fuck.
Yeah, so Winter Night, Shadow Logoth, and the ways are the things that Rafe has really said that he's excited about. And
man, Winter Night was epic. So
Rafe is really into the horror factor of book 1, and you can tell because that tone is omnipresent in everything we've seen so far.
He's really hitting that horror cowbell.
Yeah, more cowbell.
More horror cowbell.
More. A critique that I have. There were a couple of lines that just felt a little campy to me when Lan introduced himself. When I watched that the first time around, when they gave us that preview at the New York Comic Con, it felt a little campy then. I was hoping it would feel better in context. It didn't. It felt campy in the show as well. Bran greeting Egwene as she comes back from her initiation also felt very high school theater, not professional acting.
His beard sucked.
Bran's whole look sucked.
Yeah, Bran was disappointing. I would expect an owner of 2 or 3 clocks to be a little more impressive. Come on, Bran.
I could see the beard glue in his beard. I was like, that's not great. That was the only place where I saw a costume or a facial hair that I thought looked fake.
Bran's costuming wasn't the best. His hair wasn't great. Especially because the actor that plays Bran is a total smoke show. I will say that the trailers and stuff that we have gotten definitely seem to be mostly episode 1 stuff.
There's a little bit of episode 2 stuff, but yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. There's very few scenes that we haven't seen in the trailers that weren't in episode 1s or 2s.
Mostly Faldara and the tower.
I guess yeah, all the tower scenes, which I guess yeah, again we do know a fair amount of what's going on in the tower. We don't know much about Faldara at all.
Anything that has to do with Logain, we also haven't seen.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and so who got, like, stilled or killed or whatever the fuck happened at the very beginning there?
That was just a random male channeler that the Red Audra was like,
Whatever, Darksbane or...
Rowland? Rowland was like centuries before this story.
Okay, well wasn't there...
There was an unnamed false dragon that we never got a name for in the series who was killed, but I really appreciate you guys talking with me about that.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?